If you've been on social media, you've probably seen a lot of job descriptions for AI leadership positions. That's not uncommon for this point in any tech revolution. The rate of AI project failures is causing CEOs to look for additional help. Here's the challenge. The AI landscape has changed dramatically, but the hiring practices haven't. Traditional incumbents are still hiring the same way they did before the AI revolution started. Welcome to the Enduring Advantage podcast. I'm your host, Zachary Alexander. Let's start with the real example. A job description came across my feed this week. Deputy Director of AI at a government technology agency. The description was based on 4 pillars: master planning, governance, ecosystem partnerships, and program management. On the surface, it looks like a serious role for a serious organization. But when you look out over the AI landscape, every one of those pillars reveals an assumption that doesn't hold anymore. And that isn't just one job description. I've been watching these stacked up on LinkedIn for months now. Different agencies, different industries, different titles, but the same DNA underneath. Master planning language, governance layers, partnership ecosystems, program portfolios. You could swap the company names and you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. That's not a coincidence, that's a pattern. And it reveals why hiring practices across entire industries are stuck in a set of assumptions about AI leadership that made sense before the AI native phase, but haven't been updated to match the landscape we're operating in. Let's take them one at a time. Master planning. Master planning assumes the AI landscape is relatively stable. When capabilities double every 7 months, a master plan written in January is based on capabilities that will be 4 times more powerful by the time you're implementing the back half. Conclusion: your strategic planning horizon has become untethered from reality. We need to be thinking in terms of something like a 12-week year. Most executives have heard of the 12-week year as a productivity tool. It aligns with quarters. Let's talk governance. Most organizations still think that governance means one thing: least privilege access, permissions, or who can do what, and that's important. But in the AI native landscape, there's a second form of governance that most organizations haven't even recognized yet: the saturation governance. Saturation governance is about how many initiatives you deploy at any given time. Creating a saturated threat environment for your competitors is the goal. Doing so at the detriment of your own organization is not. When governance only covers access control, nobody's watching whether the deployment pace is overwhelming. Next, ecosystem partnerships. This pillar is about building partnerships with industry, academia, and government. But when you look at it closely, this isn't about AI leadership. It's traditional acquisition management. Build versus buy. That's a procurement conversation dressed up as strategy. The AI native landscape shifts this conversation entirely. It's about the best tools available from third-party vendors, open source, or developed in-house, and how we will assemble them into intelligence infrastructure your organization owns. That's a fundamentally different question than who do we partner with. Now let's talk about program management. This is the pillar that's evolving fastest. Traditional program management is portfolio administration, a collection of projects at different phases managed across timelines and budgets. But in the AI native landscape, program management is becoming mission planning. You still have a portfolio of projects at different phases of completion. That doesn't change. What changes is the organizing principle. Traditional program management organizes around resource allocation, timeline coordination, and consolidated procurement. Mission planning organizes around focus. And what's the objective? What does the terrain look like? And what do we deploy to accomplish our mission? That's not a semantic difference. It's a posture difference. A drone maker posture. Now let me put some numbers behind this. For example, AI capabilities are doubling every 7 months. That means a master plan written in January is already one doubling behind by August. And because everything in the ecosystem is doubling in capability, not just the LLM, you probably only have 3 to 4 months before things start doubling. By the time you're implementing the back half of a 12-month plan, you're working with assumptions that are at least twice as capable as you started with. The landscape may be closer to 4 to 6 times more capable than your plan was built on. That's not a planning gap, that's a planning chasm. So how do you close that chasm? You compress the strategic cycle. Most people have heard of the 12-week year. It's a productivity framework that gives you 4 year ends per calendar year instead of 1. Most organizations perform better at year end. Everybody feels the heat. Everybody goes or does whatever they have to in order to meet the deadline so they can look good at year end. Start with a 12-week cycle to learn the true execution capability and build the weekly review habit. If you repeatedly find that the critical work spills over or feels artificially compressed, expand selectively to 14 to 16 weeks. But keep the same weekly planning and scorecard mechanics. Now here's where it gets serious. Competitive replication timelines have compressed. It used to take 3 to 5 years for a competitor to analyze your advantage, design a replication strategy, and implement. With AI-enhanced capabilities, that timeline has compressed to 18 or 24 months and still compressing. So do the math. If their role is to build around a 12-month planning cycle and competitors can replicate your advantage in 18 months or less, your leaders have exactly 1 cycle, maybe 2, before the advantage they're planning around have become table stakes. That's not a talent problem, that's a math problem, expressed as architecture. For the record, none of these pillars are stupid. Every one of them made sense before the AI native phase. That's what makes this about structural misalignment, not about poor decision making. A traditional HR strategy says this is hard. We need someone exceptional. A structural misalignment role says this role assumes conditions that no longer hold, so even the most exceptional person will struggle. The first is a talent problem. The second is an architecture problem. If this is a structural misalignment, why do smart executives keep writing those same job descriptions? Because the way you hire reflects on who you are as a leader. If you built your career on strategic planning, governance frameworks, and partnership development, writing a job description around those pillars isn't a mistake. It's an identity expression. Changing the job description means changing how you see yourself as a leader. And that's not a strategy problem. That's a permission problem. The capabilities to hire differently are already there. What's missing is permission to let go of the identity container that made those old hiring practices feel right. Here's why that permission is so hard to grant. These executives aren't resisting change because they're stubborn. They're protecting what they've built, their identity as strategic leaders, their track record, their credibility. Research shows that loss aversion is 2 to 3 times stronger than gain seeking. Telling a senior executive to abandon master planning feels like asking them to abandon the thing that made them successful. That's not resistance, that's preservation instinct, and it's powerful. But here's the reframe. Your skills aren't obsolete. The container they operate in is changing. Strategic planning isn't dead. It operates at a different level now. Governance isn't dead. It's embedded in speed instead of layered on top. Partnership thinking isn't dead. It's evolved into intelligence ownership. Same skills, different level. That's what gives an executive permission to evolve their hiring practices without feeling like they're betraying the leadership identity that got them here. The tension in every senior AI hire right now is between 2 sets of sensibilities. Traditional incumbent sensibilities say plan comprehensively, govern separately, build partnerships, and manage programs. These made sense when the landscape was relatively stable and advantage lasted over a decade. A drone maker processor says adapt to a 12 to 16-week year, embed governance to create speed, own your intelligence infrastructure, deploy swarms instead of planning programs. These match an environment where advantage erode in 18 to 24 months and competitors' capabilities double every 7 months. So what does a structurally aligned senior AI native look like? Not a master planner, an adaptation architect. Someone whose role is built around improving cycle speed, not planning horizons. Someone who embeds governance into deployment rather than layering it on top. Someone who builds intelligence infrastructure the organization owns so that the organization can maximize institutional knowledge. The question isn't, can this person write a great AI strategy? It's about clarity and discernment. Clarity is pre-production. Knowing what to ask before AI generates anything, specifying intent with enough precision that the output serves the actual goal, not just the stated prompt. Discernment is post-production. Knowing whether the output is actually what you needed, evaluating AI output against domain reality, not just against the description of what you asked for. AI native executives need both clarity and discernment. So how do you actually spot the difference in an interview? The core challenge: both capabilities are invisible in a standard executive interview because the standard executive interview never creates conditions that require them. Clarity is pre-production, specifying intent precisely enough that execution serves the actual goal. The interview instrument for clarity isn't a question about AI. It's a question about specifications under ambiguity. Ask them to walk you through a recent decision where they had to brief a team on something complex. Not what the outcome was, how they specified what they needed, what they included, what they left out, what happened when the execution came back wrong, if it came back wrong. Discernment is post-production, evaluating output against domain reality, not against the description of what was asked. The instrument here is the one already developed. Give them AI-generated analysis in their functional domain. Don't identify it as AI-generated. Ask them to critique it. But the signal is more specific than just whether they find problems. Watch for 3 things. Specificity of critique, generic criticism. I'd validate these assumptions in a different way. That's not discernment. Discernment sounds like this. This margin projection ignores a Q3 flow pattern we see every year, which means the recommendation breaks down at the moment we need it the most. Domain specific, institutionally grounded, not regurgitation without the depth. Now, let's talk about spotting a master planner. A master planner walks into an interview talking about building a comprehensive AI roadmap. They want to know about your technology stack, your vendor relationships, your governance structure. They're not thinking in traditional time horizons. They're thinking in cycles. How many times can we adapt before the landscape shifts again? What do we do if it shifts unexpectedly? Listen for the verbs. Master planners use words like design, align, coordinate, govern. Senior AI natives use terms like deploy, sense, adapt, redeploy. That sounds like drone makers. The vocabulary tells you which set of assumptions they're carrying. And look at the job description itself. If it reads like a control function, planning, governance, risk management, oversight, it was built for an incumbent strategy. If it reads like an operating function, cycle speed, intelligence capture, adaptive deployment, mission focus, it's built for the landscape you're actually in. Let me trace what happens when you hire a structurally misaligned leader. Because this isn't abstract, it follows a predictable timeline. Month 1 through month 3. Your new deputy director of AI is building their master plan. They're conducting stakeholder interviews, assessing the technology landscape, mapping capabilities. Good work, diligent work. Exactly what the job description asks for. Month 4 through 6, they're establishing governance frameworks, playbooks for responsible AI, risk assessment protocols, partnership agreements with 2 to 3 academic institutions, and a handful of vendors. The organization feels like progress is happening. Months 7 through 9, they're moving to program delivery. Resource allocation across the first wave of projects, the timeline coordination, procurement. Meanwhile, AI capabilities have doubled once since they started. The master plan is based on assumptions that are now out of date. Month 10 through 12, they're implementing the back half of their plan. By now, capabilities are nearly ready to double again. What was hard is now cheap. The governance frameworks that they built doesn't account for saturation governance. This ensures that we don't overwhelm ourselves while we are overwhelming our competitors. The partnerships they establish are delivering capabilities the organization can now get from open source at a fraction of the cost. The program portfolio is organized around resource allocation, not mission focus. That's the cost of getting a job description wrong. It's not just one bad hire. It's 18 months of organizational momentum in the wrong direction. And in an environment where competitors can replicate your advantage in the same 18 months, you may not get a second chance. One more thing. The person who takes a role like this, they're probably going to be talented, hardworking, and well-intentioned. The problem isn't them. The problem is the org chart was designed for a world that doesn't exist anymore. And the hardest thing for any leader to recognize is the role they were hired for is structurally misaligned with the environment they're operating in. That's not a failure of the person, it's a failure of organizational design. So let's bring this together. The AI landscape has changed dramatically, but hiring practices haven't. Traditional incumbents are still writing job descriptions built on 4 assumptions. That you can master plan in a landscape whose capabilities double every 7 months. That governance is a separate function than embedded discipline. That ecosystem partnerships are strategy rather than procurement. That program management is the right organizing principle when mission planning is what the environment demands. That's not poor decision-making. That's structural misalignment. And the reason smart executives keep repeating the pattern is because the way you hire reflects who you are as a leader. Changing the job description means giving yourself permission to let go of the identity that made you successful and adapting to what's next. Your skills aren't obsolete. The container is changing. Same skills, different level. The cost of getting this wrong isn't just one bad hire. It's 18 months of organizational momentum in the wrong direction, in an environment where your competitors can replicate your advantage in the same 18 months. So before you post your next AI leadership role, ask yourself, is this job description built for the landscape I came from or the landscape I'm operating in now?